Good evening, baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags here in Season 4, Episode 33. And today, here we are honored here to have longtime friend and reconnecting Ryan, a.k.a. Nugget Morris. Ryan, how you doing tonight?
I'm great, Rags, man. I'm honored to be here with you, man. Gosh, as long as we've known each other and of course, seeing all the guests you've had up until now, I feel like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel with me.
No, man. Hey, I certainly appreciate your time. I mean, Mike Sharp that I grew up with there at Western Branch, he graduated in 93. And, he gave me this idea here right after the pandemic. So definitely been blessed here with area and, national players and broadcasters that have come on. So appreciate your time here with your bio to be added to the guest list.
Well, like I said, I'm honored to be on that list. You've got a lot of good folks, and I know you'll keep having good people. I've actually listened to a couple after I found out about it was going on, and you're doing a great job. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, sure, no problem. Appreciate the plug. Well, hey, let's get started at the beginning. I mean, when you grew up here in the area, did you play all sports, or was it just strictly baseball here as you got older?
No, man, I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s. I did everything. That's just what we did back then. And every season, you changed out the uniforms. Football in the front yard, basketball in the driveway, and fortunately for me, I grew up, my childhood home backed up to the actual Olive Branch Elementary, which had the alternate field for the Little League. And when it was baseball season, I come home from school, jump the fence, and I would join in practices and softball anything that was over there. I was trying to play with them, but no, we played every sport. It's funny. I spend a lot of time these days telling families and kids that, you learn so much with every sport, every experience. And, you'll hear it from pro guys all the time. They played all kinds of sports and learned all kinds of different lessons. So, yeah, I played them all, man.
Yes. And then when my brother Mike met you there in high school, with you being at Manor, Mike was at Western Branch, and with me doing the stats and following Southeastern District baseball. I mean, definitely there in the early 90s. I mean, it was definitely the district title there. Manor and Western Branch certainly competed here for the district titles.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that started, I'll be honest with you, as a kid, when playing Little League and coming All-Star time, Churchland and Western Branch and, those Little League programs. And I know Western Branch played boys baseball, but you were aware of how good they were. And, I remember the names ahead of me that made, from a baseball standpoint, that made me want to be better. And that was, the Mike Ragsdales and Walt Mizuno and Garrett Savin and, the list goes on and on of all the good players from that area. And I think it did. I think it spilled over into high school baseball, and we had a lot of good players go through that district in that time, and I think we all fed off each other and we all made each other better. I think it didn't feel like it at the time. Your brother made me feel like I was getting worse, but.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is Manor, Churchland, Western Branch. I mean, not only did we compete against one another there in high school, but it fed right into high school rec baseball here. There with pretty much playing against each other from like March all the way to August.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my fondest memories was during high school. My family, we moved from the Park Manor area. We actually moved to Merrifields in Churchland. And I was able to continue going to school at Manor, but in the summer, I played with Billy Skeeter and the Skeeter boys and Ryan Glenn. And I mean, that was one of the best teams I've ever played on. I mean, it was just a really cool collection of really good players and good guys. And, we played into it was the Palomino World Series.
Right.
We got pretty deep, went to Greensboro. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, we played against each other and then turned right around and put the same jersey on. So,
yeah. And then after high school, I mean, playing at Bridgewater in ODAC, I mean, that's got to be the SEC of D3 baseball.
yeah, I was very fortunate. At Manor High School, how it is. I went through Little League and you start getting into high school baseball and you think you're a pretty good player, but they're bigger, stronger guys. And fortunately I had somebody believe in me, Bruce Phelps.
Yeah.
I tried out for the varsity team my freshman year at Manor High School just because I wanted to see what it was like.
Right.
And he kept me. He kept me because he called me aside and said, if you stop playing hard, I'll send you down. And does that mean I made it?
Yeah.
But that for me gave me, I got to take ground balls behind Clint Osborne for, 2 years and watch him work. And then I saw him get recruited to VCU. And it really, for me, I just wanted a chance to play after high school after seeing that. And, Coach Phelps was a really good mentor to me and gave me really good advice. And as I started trying to get serious about playing college baseball, one thing that I think doesn't get enough credit in our area was what was going on at Old Dominion.
Yeah.
So Mark Newman had started the baseball camps at Old Dominion, which, I mean, people would come from New York, New Jersey, all over the place to those camps to get what we had in our backyard. For me, when I was about 9, I think my dad realized that, this guy really wants to, this is what he loves to do. He started taking me to those camps. And Mark Newman took me under his wing and liked me and became a mentor to me. So as I got into high school and still going to those showcase camps and trying to get better, between Coach Phelps and Coach Newman, they said, look, you're an undersized guy. You could probably go somewhere and maybe play, maybe not.
Right.
You'd probably be better served finding a place that, you could play early on. Because I had a zest for being on the field, man.
Right.
And so yeah, I ended up at Bridgewater. I wish I could have told you I knew it was going to be the experience it was. I really didn't. I was told by a friend, Ron Moss from Nansman, Suffolk. He said, you ought to come up here. We need a second baseman. I said, all right, here we go. So it ended up being a great baseball experience. We won 3 consecutive conference titles. We were undefeated in the conference my senior year. Made a couple NCAA tournaments, made a couple good runs. And just last spring, that team that I was a part of for those 3 years was just inducted to the Hall of Fame at Bridgewater.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was cool. I got to speak on our behalf as a team captain and just honored and really humbling. And how I ended up there, I wish I could tell you, but you're right. It was really good baseball. We had a really good team, and really, without that, I've been fortunate. I spent a lifetime in baseball because of those people that got me there and the experiences I had there.
Right. So let's see. So with being, Bridgewater, and for those that are listening, and it's right off of 81, so when you were at Bridgewater, I mean, during the summers, would you come home and just work out, or did you have the opportunity to play in the Valley League or a summer collegiate league?
Yeah, so back then it was a little different. And I say back then, like, I guess I'm older, we had aluminum bats and dugouts and all that, but
Hey, we're the age that for Little League, when you came with your own equipment, you were somebody.
yeah, yeah, we still had the green army bag with the
Right.
bats and helmets all in it, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was a little different than, the Valley League at that time. Um, to be honest with you, it was really just a tad below the Cape at that
Right.
time, and to get into that league was really tough, especially as a Division III player. They really, through in the '90s, that was heavy. Miami, Florida State, and it was really tough to get in that league. I had a couple teammates that caught on, and would, a couple guys got released, and then a guy get caught on, and what have you. I entertained going there as a temp player one year and then trying to hang on. But what I ended up doing most summers was I would come back, and at that time we had the Tidewater Summer League.
Oh, okay.
And so I would come back, and this is true. I wanted to play as many games as I could and get as much experience as I could. And I would, me and a guy by the name of Jim Dover,
Right.
would it was a high school teammate, pitched Martin. We would get together for the summer. We'd work out in the mornings. We would lift. We would run. We would throw. We would do everything that we needed to do, and then we'd go somewhere, get some lunch, and get cleaned up. And then I would play in the Tidewater Summer League, which a lot of the Old Dominion, Virginia Wesleyan players were playing in. So I was playing against we were playing against some really good players. Turner Williams and those guys all played in that league when they were taking summer school, and it was just a really good league. You saw some really good pitching. But I would also play in the Chincoteague League out there in Suffolk.
Right.
And it was a men's league. So they would have guys out there that had played a little pro ball that would come back, and so you'd play some really good guys there. So I was playing in 2 or 3 leagues every summer and probably playing, I don't know, 40 games. So that's what I.
Right. Yeah. And then, after Bridgewater, I mean, did you always have if things didn't open up to play at the next level after Bridgewater, did you always have an interest to get into coaching?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I will tell you, I'm probably different than most. And I before I answer that, I want to give a shout out. So that Tidewater Summer League was such a good league and held intact. I want to mention Bobby McKinney, because Bobby was the guy who was kind of keeping that going at the time, and possible for all of us to have a place to go and play. And that was really good for me. But so as far as coaching and playing and all that went, I'd go get my hair cut when I was a little kid, and the lady would ask me, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I'd have my Nolan Ryan jersey on with Ryan on the back, and I'm going to play in the big leagues. And she'd ask the team, and I'd tell her, and I believed it. And but I'm gonna tell you, my dad, if he were sitting next to me, he'd tell you this right now. When I met Mark Newman and started, after about 2 or 3 years around him and the people that came through there, I came home. I was probably 11 years old, and I told my dad, I said, I want to do what Coach Newman does.
Yeah.
And he said, well, he's a coach, and it's hard. I want to play as long as I can, but that's what I want to do one day. I want to be Coach Newman. And he made such an impression on me. My dad led me to baseball. My dad taught me how to compete and how to work at something, work ethic and just how to just pour everything you have into something. And he led me to baseball, and he supported me, and he'd come home from work and play catch with me in his work clothes and throw batting practice to me. And I have him to thank for giving me the gift of baseball. But I think that we got to a point where he realized that, Coach Newman could teach you the finer points and expose you to something that you couldn't get in your backyard. And that's when he started taking me to those camps. And Coach Newman made such an impact on me, not because he was such a brilliant person or a brilliant baseball man, but because he would talk about the things that my dad talked about, hard work, hustle, integrity, discipline, sit in front of the class at school. And, I wasn't a great student, but I was scared he was going to walk in one of my classes. I sat up front every class I went into because Coach Newman said you're supposed to.
Right.
And he just made a huge impression on me. And I knew at a young age that's eventually what I wanted to do. And so, you play through college, and I'll be honest with you, by my probably my senior year, I felt like I could, and a lot of guys on the team I played on probably could have gone other places, bigger schools, and been successful by that point. Right. But I knew it was going to be tough for me to continue playing. After my senior year, I went to a ton of tryouts, and, I got a chance to go. I got an offer at an independent league, and I looked around and wasn't sure what to do. And my head coach at Bridgewater, he asked me if I wanted to start my coaching career. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. I felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And so that summer I started working our camps at Bridgewater, and that fall I was his assistant coach and hit the road recruiting. And, I was living my dream. I didn't know that you were supposed to make more than like $1,000.
That's the thing about coaching, is to get the start. I mean, you talk about a career where you start at the bottom up, at the ground floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people just don't realize that, when you tell them in the early goings, you tell them what you're doing, and, they just know what they see on TV, and football coaches and basketball coaches and some baseball coaches. And assume there's money to be had in those early days, but you have to pay your dues and climb and scratch and claw your way up that coaching ladder. And, but I was young, and Bridgewater was great for me. It allowed me a lot of things. One, it allowed me the opportunity to go on the road and recruit. And I won't say, it gave me the chance to make some mistakes and learn from them at a level that you recruit the student first, for sure. But I learned a lot in those 2 years I was there as a coach. But they gave me you're recruiting for the school and the student first. So when you want to go on the road, they hand you the keys to a car and give you money to eat. So it made a lot more sense than staying at home buying my own food. So I was on the road a lot. And then, of course, the coaching side of it, you had to grow up fast because I was coaching guys that I had just played with, right. Which is no easy task. So I learned a lot from that. And fortunately, a lot of us are still friends even after that. But and then the second year, I was a dorm director. And so I, actually made a little bit of money as a dorm director and continued recruiting and doing my job on the field. And I won't say I was a great dorm director. There's plenty of stories still around about that experience, um, but no, that was a great experience for me. And the summer after my second year there, I got a call. In the summers I would work our camps, but then I would also go out and work other camps. I'd come back to the Old Dominion camp, and just go there and you try to learn, but you also try to make people realize that maybe you have some ability to teach. And Coach Guzzo at Old Dominion had taken to me a little bit, and I think liked me and respected me, and so that summer reached out to me about, as you mentioned, a volunteer position, and never been happier not to be paid.
Right. Well, and that's that must have been something that, not only move up, from D3 to D1, but then to wear the Monarch pinstripes of a place that you grew up going to the camps, and Mark Newman and Pat McMahon, and here Coach Guzzo. I mean, we talk about local names. I mean, Coach Guzzo there in Norfolk and Virginia Beach goes way back.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was a dream come true. And I mean that. To be able to put that uniform on meant the world to me. It's all I ever wanted to do. I mean, that's where I wanted to play for Coach Newman, and he was honest with me and gave me good advice and got me to the place I probably should have been. But I sat in those stands and froze my tail off watching games. My dad took me to just about every home game, since I was probably 9-10 years old. And gosh, I had video games at home where I would, back then, the old Commodore 64, you could make your team. And my team was always that year's Old Dominion team, whether it was, Wayne Gomes and Jeff Ware or whoever it was, those were my guys. And to be able to put that uniform on and then take the field, it meant everything. And of course, it was the start to, I'm proud of it, a long, career in Division I baseball, and to start there and work for Coach Guzzo and some of the people I was able to work alongside of and work with, just a true honor. And I couldn't have drawn it up any better way to start, not only start there, but also come back home and, see people in the stands from Portsmouth and from my high school and Little League coaches. And yeah, it was a great experience. Great way.
Yeah. And then also, before you came back and was on Coach Myers' staff, I mean, even the stint here up the road, being part of Rams baseball and the history there with the Diamond.
Yeah. So, it's funny. So when I grew up going to Old Dominion games, of course, you had Mark Newman and Pat McMahon, and VCU would come to town, and that was Coach Guzzo, and
right.
Paul Keys, his assistant, and so I knew those guys, and they were the enemy to me, but I respected them and knew them from camps and what have you. And so after that first year at Old Dominion, Coach Keys came to work our camp, and had lost one of his assistant coaches, had left to go to another school, and he pulled me aside and asked me if I'd be interested in being able to get on the road and recruit and start to get paid. And it was an opportunity that I didn't see coming, and I mean, couldn't have drawn that up either, to work for a man that I respected like Paul Keys, and to be able to get on the road recruiting. I had just finished that summer, I had just finished summer managing the Waynesboro Generals in the Valley League. So, I was hungry to keep going and try to keep improving as a coach, but get on the road recruiting and start trying to build out a program was something I was hungry to do. And So I went out and sat down with them, and it just made sense. And, at that time, not realizing, well, I knew at that time, I guess, it was such a huge rivalry, and to cross lines, but
Right.
everybody good. Yeah, those next 5 years there, man, just, gosh, the teams, the players, that I had a chance to work alongside and work with, and not just good players, but good people. And the teams we had during that span, just a whole lot of fun. I'm really proud of those years, and still stay in touch with a lot of those guys today. But yeah, that was an amazing time there. It really, I'll tell you, I mean, so Paul Keyes was, played for Mark Newman,
Right.
and a lot of similarities. Paul was a brilliant man, hard-nosed, and I will tell you, it was not tough. It was not easy to play for him, and not easy to work for him. But once you understood him and started to appreciate what he was trying to accomplish, you learned a lot from him, and it made you better. And I really, it's a shame I can't thank him every day anymore, but he was a big part of my career. And to this day, there's not probably a week or day that goes by that I don't think of something that he taught me, about life, baseball, business. I mean, he was just a brilliant man. And yeah, he gave me a huge opportunity. And I mean, that probably, honestly changed my life, that opportunity.
Yeah, and the thing is, here it is, 2024, and Western Branch alum Justin Orndorff transferred to VCU, and you weren't on the ODU side at the time, but there in spring 2004, Friday night, Justin versus Justin there at the Bud, because ODU and VCU were still in the CAA. That's probably one of the historic pitching matchups ever to be at the Bud, and Orndorff came on here to share about how that matchup was just recognized 20 years.
Yeah, man. What a night that was, and I'm just proud to have even been a small part of that evening. But it's funny how that night came together. So the truth is, I mentioned playing Palomino baseball in Churchland. Well, when I did that, I played for Justin's stepdad, I believe, when I was much younger. Right. And then Justin comes out and, is this prospect out of Western Branch, and you hear about him. Well, he goes to GW.
Right.
And, how recruiting goes. I'm in Richmond. Justin Verlander's in Richmond. Right. You start trying to figure out what he is. He ends up at Old Dominion. Well, then we get a notice that Justin Orndorff's thinking about transferring. We had already recruited him a little bit, and started the recruiting process over. It was a great fit. He ended up at our place, and I mean, first off, you won't find a better person. Right. A harder worker, a more diligent worker, and he was good. I mean, he was really good. And those guys matched up that night. It was two titans going at it, and of course, I would argue that night is when the world met Justin Verlander. Yeah. He was good all the way through his career. He was good, but I saw him throw as much as anybody, whether it was during the recruiting process, but we also met up with him, every Friday night, for 3 years, when we'd match up with him. And I ran out to coach third base that night and saw him throw his first couple warm-ups. And I thought to myself, this is going to be tough sledding. It was just it was different that night. And, he ended up striking out a whole busload of people, and he was really good that night. But like I said, I was just proud to even be a part of that, and was proud to see, even though I was on the VCU side, was proud to see the bud full.
Right.
And again, so many people, so many baseball people that I respected over all those years were at that game. It really meant a lot to me, and to be on the field for that, man, it was almost like a trip back through your baseball life, seeing all these people and then being in that uniform on the field. So I'll tell you a really funny story about that night.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the game, we couldn't get anything going against Verlander, and no one could. I mean, it didn't matter who was hitting. He was just going to be better that night. So Paul Keys, before I went out to coach third in, I don't know, say the 5th inning, he pulled me aside. He says, "We need to slow him down." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" Because Verlander likes to work fast.
Right.
And he said, "Well, start giving some signs." I said, "Well, we don't even have anybody on base." And so I ran out to coach third, and Jeff Parrish was our catcher. And he was from Pocosin. Jeff, big 6'6", really good catcher, right-handed hitter. So he comes up, I think with 2 outs or whatever in the 5th. And in the middle of a delivery, kind of steps out on Verlander. And Verlander and him kind of exchanged some words. So he ran one way up and in on Parrish. And I thought, well, I would have done the same thing probably. The next pitch struck him out with like 97. So as the inning's over, I start to run off the field, and Verlander's fired up, and he's still that way today.
Right.
Coming off the field, well, he looks at me and goes, "That one's for you too." And he starts barking at me, and I said, "Hey, man, what am I doing this?" And next thing I know, he and I are yelling at each other on the step of their dugout. So 2 competitors, you know, and so after they ended up obviously winning that night, and after the game, we had a good laugh about it, and I couldn't be happier for the career he's had. I mean, gosh, who that night I might have told you he was a Hall of Famer, but he looked like it that night, and I'm really glad he's had the success he's had too.
Yeah, and then coming back to not only home, but being part of Coach Myers' staff, and and then also coaching Huddy there from Princess Anne, and then Pat comes to play catcher there for Old Dominion, and then I bring Mike's boys to one of the baseball clinics that Tom Seaver speaking. So just talk about coming back here and being part of Monarch baseball.
Yeah, so my first go around with Coach Guzzo was great, and then you get into the league with VCU, and we won the league a couple times up there and had a lot of success, and guys going on to play pro ball and a couple high picks, and felt like we had it really had it going, and unfortunately, and I mean this, unfortunately at that time Old Dominion was scuffling a bit and wasn't having as much success for whatever reason. And when they did make a change, and Jerry, when Jerry was announced that Jerry took the job, Jerry and I had known each other from way back, working camps and stuff. It's funny, I that summer when that change happened, I needed a break from. I had 2 things. I needed a break from recruiting. Honestly, I had been on, the reason I think we were pretty good at VCU is I got after it really, really hard on the recruiting trail. Got after it pretty good, and I spent a lot of time on the road, and needed a break from that. But I also wanted to see where I was as a manager, as a coach. So that summer when the change happened, I was managing the Peninsula Pilots, and we were having a heck of a summer, man. We had really put together a good club and had a good thing going. So I honestly, I felt great about where I was. And then found out Jerry had taken the job. And, I reached out to Paul Keys of VCU and said, hey, I that's something I'd like to talk to Jerry. And I'd like to get back there. That's ultimately where I want to be. And he knew that.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Jerry, and had a lot of people. I mean, it's a great program. So a lot of people, you get people coming out of the woodwork to be the recruiting coordinator at Old Dominion, and especially knowing that they were going to, make a change and try to make some improvements and better the program. So it was tough trying to get in front of Jerry. I'll tell you a funny story. So at the All-Star break, I was managing the pilots. We were having a good year, so I was part of the All-Star coaching staff. And Jerry at the time was finishing up his duties at South Carolina coach. And the All-Star game that year for the Coastal Plains League was in Florence. So it's about an hour. It's about an hour from Columbia.
Right.
And I couldn't get Jerry to call me back. I was trying to get in front of him, and I just couldn't get him to call me back. And years ago, someone had told me, he said, sometimes you just have to go get it. You just have to throw it out there and not be afraid to fail miserably, if you really want it. And so I find myself in Florence, South Carolina, and people are asking me what's going on, what's going to happen at Old Dominion and so on and so forth. And I just made up my mind. We had the home run derby one night, and then we had a luncheon or whatever that next morning, and then the All-Star game was later that night. So I really didn't have anything that I had to do. And I told the people with the All-Star game, I said, I'm not going to be at the luncheon. I'll be back later, but I'm sorry, I'm going to skip the luncheon. Right. I jumped in the car and drove to Columbia and pulled into the stadium. And I got out of the car. I didn't even know where to start. A guy comes walking out of the batting cage. Well, the funny thing is, I go, excuse me, how you doing? He goes, hey, pretty good. Can I help you? It was Monty Lee, who it was just, he's at South Carolina now, and maybe the head coach, and was the head coach at Clemson just a couple years ago. Well, Monty was the volunteer at that time, and I said, I'm looking for Jerry Myers. He goes, well, I think he's up at the offices. You just got to pull up a little further. I said, all right, no problem. So I jump in my car and I go driving up there. And I pull into the parking space, and right in front of my car walks Jerry Myers.
Oh, wow.
I hop out of my car and go, Jerry. And he's looking, what are you doing here? I said, well, I've called you a couple times. Right. And he goes, yeah, I got your message. I said, I drove over here to tell you that I really want to be a recruiting coordinator. Yeah. And he goes, are you serious? I go, yeah. He goes, no, seriously, what are you doing in Columbia? I said, I'm here to tell you I want to be a recruiting coordinator. Right. And so the truth is, we had about a 15, maybe a 20-minute conversation in the parking lot. He never offered me to come in the building or anything. And I said, well, I got to get back. I got to coach the All-Star game tonight. Right. I took my car and drove an hour and 15 or whatever it was back. And I drive back. I'm like, I don't know if that was worth it. And, a couple weeks later, he called me, and I went in and interviewed, and it worked out. Again, just another unforeseen blessing to be able to come back home, put that uniform on again, but then feel like you could really impact that program with the recruiting, as the recruiting coordinator, and the efforts that you put in that, and then working with Jerry Myers. I mean, you won't find a better person out there in college baseball. Just a great man. We were very different. We were, different people, but I think good for each other. We stayed in touch. Really happy for him to see he's back, as a head coach. But then, I'm proud of what we did there. We, if you look at the draft picks that came out of there for those next, 4 or 5 years, a lot of good players, a lot of good teams. I think everybody involved during those years would tell you, we felt like we could have done a little bit more, but, hey, really proud of what we did. And, guys like, Patrick Nichols and, Daniel Hudson and Jake McAloose. And I mean, all the guys that came through there, really proud of all our guys that were local guys and that stayed home and believed in what we were doing. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
Well, Ryan, I know for as long as we've known each other, appreciate your time coming on. And I know that we had a lot to talk about, but what are you doing now?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. When I got out of college baseball, I honestly, when my wife and I knew we were going to start having kids, I know what it takes to be a good recruiting coordinator and what it takes to put together a good team. And I just wanted to be there for my family, be around, and knew that needed to change. And for a couple years there, went to Cape Henry, had a great run at Cape Henry. That team was a really good team. Couple professionals on that team, and Jack Winecoop and Tyler Ramirez, a couple of really good players. But moved down to North Carolina after that year, and started my career with Edward Jones Investments. Okay. And started with them in 2012. I'm still with Edward Jones. I live in Emerald Isle, North Carolina. Okay. And after about 4 or 5 years and getting to know the business as a financial advisor, started to go back to my roots in baseball and my contacts in baseball, and fortunately started to be able to help quite a few guys after they signed professionally. Help them with their money, help build out a plan for them, and help them manage money that they're not used to handling, so that it's there for them when they need it the most. Obviously, if they end up in the big leagues for an extended period of time, it all works out. But if they don't, try to put them in a good place so that they're successful beyond baseball. So I serve quite a few folks here in our local area. In southeastern North Carolina, normal folks, normal retirees. But I do have part of my business that's dedicated towards baseball guys and trying to help them get off to the right start. And then, if or when baseball's not there, that their money is, and they have a plan in place. So that's what I do as my day job. And then here recently, as they say in The Godfather, I keep trying to get out, but they just keep pulling me back in. I was helping my son will be a ninth grader next year. Augie will be a ninth grader. My daughter is a couple years behind him. She'll be a seventh grader this year. The local high school here, Croatan High School, has had historically a pretty good baseball program. Well, their head coach resigned last summer, and so the school contacted me and kind of went round and round for a little bit, and I ended up coaching the high school team this year. Okay. And while doing my day job as a financial advisor and then running over to the ballpark, we had a great year. We were 20-5, advanced to the final 8, fourth round of the state playoffs. Had a great year. Had a great time with those guys, and so I'm going to continue to do that. And hopefully I'm looking forward to the next couple of years getting to spend some time with my own son in the dugout. Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And, then also with talking about ODU and VCU and growing up in the camps and everything, I mean, and then even with Coach Guzzo and Paul Keys, I mean, there is something between ODU and VCU baseball that when it's between the lines, of course, everybody wants to win. But at the end of the day, I mean, just between Paul Keys and Coach Guzzo and with your resume, I mean, and Mark Newman, I mean, definitely the history between the people involved with ODU baseball and VCU baseball. And I think Finney, even today, tries to schedule home and home with VCU, even though they're not in the same conference anymore.
Yeah. The law too, I think part of it, obviously the people involved have all had really good relationships, but I think part of it too is, they're similar schools, right? They draw from their communities. I've always considered both programs very much a blue collar program. Gritty and they're having to kind of fight for their space amongst the ACC and the SEC, and both programs are similar that way. And you're fighting over the same players a lot of times.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just so many good baseball people have passed through those two programs. Matter of fact, back behind me, I've got the Yankees Royals game on right now, and if just those two programs, you got Matty Quatrero managing the on one side, and then on the other side you got Pat Rossler, six they call him. Pat was Mark Newman's assistant for how many years and is now the hitting coach for the Yankees. I mean, it's just those programs have had so many great baseball people come through them. It's truly amazing.
Yes, yeah, and and you got the Yankees Royals on behind you, but I mean, we're right in the middle here of the college baseball playoffs here, and boy, has that sport grown with the TV and all the coverage. But so Brian, definitely appreciate your time, and that's got to be something here to be back in baseball and now to coach your son and his age group here with another generation of high school kids.
Yeah, I am. It is really exciting. I'm looking forward to the next few years, and the only reason I ever got into this was to try and give kids the same inspiration that I was given by, my Little League coaches, Coach Phelps, my college coaches, Coach Newman, Coach McMahon, all the people that inspired me to want to take a run at this crazy game. That's all I ever want to do is get back and give the kids that I coach that same inspiration and that same insight to this game. And here I am. I get to do it again. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, hey, and another mutual friend. I mean, running into Chris Prince, and reconnecting us. Appreciate Chris getting us in touch, and appreciate your time for coming on and sharing your story there, Brian.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad Chris connected us. He's a longtime friend. Believe it or not, we were on the same T-ball team together.
Wow.
Like you asked me earlier about playing different sports, we played baseball all the way through together, football, basketball, and I wouldn't be doing a friendship a service if I didn't mention Quickie Pass Right was the play of the decade in Pop Warner football. So if you ever get a chance to ask Prince, what does Quickie Pass Right mean? It's a great.
All right, yeah, I might have to bring that up if I see him at a ODU football or a basketball game.
Absolutely. Quickie Pass Right, buddy.
Hey, well, hey, Ryan, appreciate your time. And I know you got Yankees, Royals, they're on TV, but college baseball is definitely in full swing here with postseason. Thanks for finishing the call here by the phone.
You bet, man. No problem. Like I said, honored, humbled to be a part of this. And thanks for reaching out. Thanks for having me on. And I look forward to next time.
All right. Well, sounds good. And yeah, fans, that's a longtime friend here, Ryan Morris here, just sharing his story growing up and playing, and then getting into coaching and what he's doing now here with investments with Edward James, and back in the dugout here at the high school level. So thanks again, Brian.
All right, Rags. Take care, man. And hey, you keep having all these great guests, man. Like I told you, pretty soon. I used to say you were Mark's brother. Right. Mark is Mike's brother now, man.
Right. Well, hey, I certainly appreciate it, and it's definitely been a fun hobby. So see who comes on next.
That's it, man. That's it. Well, stay in touch, Rags. It's great talking.
Yep, good talking to you, and thanks again, Brian.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.
I know.